You're reading this wrong. Not because you're imagining things. Not because you're being too sensitive. But because the one signal that means an avoidant is terrified of losing you is the exact same signal most people mistake for not caring. And by the time they figure that out, it's already too late. Research from the University of Toronto's Attachment Lab confirms something that changes everything. Avoidants don't go cold when they've stopped caring. They go cold when they care so much that their entire nervous system goes into emergency shutdown. The distance isn't the end. It's the panic response. And most people, without knowing this, walk away from someone who is quietly falling apart over the thought of losing them. I see this with my clients constantly. Someone sits across from me, shows me the one-word replies, the silence, the emotional flatness, and says they've checked out. And I have to stop them, because what they're describing isn't someone who has moved on. It's someone whose system has gone into complete lockdown, because moving on feels unbearable. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what avoidant terror looks like in real behavior. You're going to see why it's almost impossible to tell apart from indifference. And you're going to know how to read the difference before you make a decision you can't take back. So let's slow down and understand what's actually happening inside an avoidant before the signs even show up on the surface. Because this is where everything starts. An avoidant's entire emotional system was built on one rule. Stay far enough away so that losing someone never fully breaks you. This wasn't a choice they made consciously. It was something their nervous system learned early, probably in childhood, when closeness kept leading to disappointment, emotional overwhelm, or simply not getting what they needed. So their brain adapted. It learned to handle emotions alone. It learned to push down attachment needs before they could grow into vulnerability. And for years, maybe decades, that system works. Relationships stay at a manageable distance. Emotions stay under control. No one gets close enough to do real damage. And then something shifts. They meet someone who gets through. Not because that person forced their way in, but because something about them, their emotional depth, their stillness, their refusal to chase, quietly bypass the system. And now the avoidant is in the exact position their entire psychology was designed to prevent. They're attached, genuinely, deeply attached. And the thought of losing that doesn't feel manageable anymore. It feels like a threat their system has no real answer for. And that is exactly when the behavior starts to look like they don't care at all. Here's where the pace picks up, because these signs are specific, and you need to know all of them. The first sign is a silence that feels different, not their usual recharge quiet. A heavier, more deliberate silence. Slower replies. Shorter messages. If you ask what's wrong, they say nothing. And they mean it, in a way, because they genuinely cannot translate what's happening inside them into words. Their emotional vocabulary has never had a phrase for, "I am terrified of how much I need you." So instead of finding one, they go completely quiet. The second sign is that they start anchoring to the future in small, indirect ways. They mention something you two talked about doing together. They reference a plan casually, like it just came up. They ask about your schedule in a way that sounds practical, but is really their nervous system trying to confirm that there is still a future, that nothing is ending yet. They cannot say, "Please don't leave," but they can ask if you still want to take that trip, and then watch your face very carefully for the answer. The third sign is a push-pull that becomes more intense and more confusing than anything you felt from them before. Just when you've accepted the distance and started pulling back yourself, they suddenly appear. A warm message out of nowhere. A moment of genuine softness that feels exactly like the version of them you fell for. And then it vanishes again. You think you imagined it. You didn't. What you're watching is their attachment system and their defense system colliding in real time. The warmth is completely real. So is a retreat that follows it. Both are happening at once, and neither one is a performance. The fourth sign is that they start sending small, low-effort things just to read your reaction. A meme, a voice note, a one-line observation about something random. And then they wait. What they're waiting for is information. They need to know if you're still warm, if you're still safe, if the connection is still intact. They cannot ask you directly. So they send something small and read everything into how you respond to it. The fifth sign, and this one is the most telling of all, is that they become hypersensitive to even tiny shifts in your behavior. You reply a little slower than usual. They notice your tone is slightly flatter in one message. They notice you skip something small you always do. They notice, and they sit with that for hours without saying a single word about it. This level of sensitivity is the complete opposite of not caring. It is the behavior of someone whose nervous system is running on high alert, constantly scanning for first sign that the thing they're most afraid of is already starting. Now, here's the hardest truth in all of this, and this is a peak of everything this video is building toward. An avoidant who is terrified of losing you will almost never tell you they're scared. Not to manipulate you, not because they don't trust you, but because saying, "I'm scared of losing you," means admitting that you have real power over their emotional world. And admitting that kind of need is the exact thing their entire system spent a lifetime learning to avoid. So instead of saying it, they show it. In silences that stretch too long. In small gestures that seem meaningless unless you know what you're looking at. In the way they stay just close enough to feel your presence without ever giving you enough to feel certain of theirs. And this is why so many people walk away from an avoidant who was, at that exact moment, standing on the edge of something real. Because avoidant terror looks like avoidant apathy. Because "I cannot stand the thought of losing you" produces almost identical behavior to "I've already let you go." And without knowing what you're actually looking at, you do the logical thing. You take the distance at face value. You protect yourself. You leave. And the avoidant, who cannot break through their own defenses in time, watches you go. And something that was right on the edge of opening closes back down, possibly for a very long time. Understanding this doesn't mean you wait forever. It doesn't mean you ignore your own needs to decode someone else's silence indefinitely. But it does mean you stop automatically reading distance as the final answer. Because sometimes the most frightened person in the relationship is also the quietest one. And what looks like someone leaving is actually someone standing completely still, hoping more than they've ever hoped for anything. That you don't go anywhere. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever looked back at a moment with an avoidant and realized what you thought was distance was actually fear? Drop it in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read right now. If this gave you something real, subscribe. Next week, we're going into what finally makes an avoidant decide to stop running and what that turning point looks like from the inside. You won't want to miss it.